Hello, and welcome to another episode of From the Depths Adventure Mode. Today, we're going to be recording something a little bit different than usual, as instead of doing a single long playthrough, um, we're actually going to be doing 3 separate ships. So, I've gone ahead, I've cut out a lot of the construction of these crafts, and instead, we're just going to be going over what didn't work with them, I guess. So, this first one, we don't spend a whole lot of time with it. It was my first attempt to construct a floating platform, essentially, and as you can probably see, we had some balance issues with that entire concept, and we don't exactly end up in the sky for very long. Instead, we kind of just flounder around under the water, and yeah, no, it didn't work out. This is not a pretty sight to actually sit back and watch it again. I remember this being a horrible struggle. But yeah, so basically, what I tried to do is I had 4 main engines, and then I was going to add some for pitch and thrust, or pitch and yaw and all that. But basically, I thought that I could just use the PIDs in combination with having them as main thrusters. But it turns out that was a absolutely terrible idea. And what ended up happening was the PIDs were just overriding the ACBs. And so every time we got a little bit off to the right, it would cause one of them to turn off, one of them to turn off, on, etc. And that also happened with our roll as well. So that's what's going on here. We're just kind of constantly meandering back and forth. And yeah, so kind of just wanted to include this one as it was the first one I attempted, and it's just kind of funny to watch. Is this terrible little thing just flails around wildly, and you can see me, we're playing it back at like 2.5 times speed. You can just watch me kind of just panic trying to fix this damn thing and just be like, I don't understand. What are you doing? And see, I'm literally setting them up to fail right now. I was mixing pitch and roll on both of those thrusters. You can see they're turned off right now entirely. And yeah, no, it's not gonna work. We're just gonna, yeah, we're upside down again. We're in the water. And so yeah, that is basically what ends up happening with this first craft. So yeah, we'll leave you with a few more seconds of just this thing attempting to struggle to stay aloft. And then after that, I kind of gave up on this one, and we just, because it is adventure mode, we've got to get our resource gatherer up and running fast, and this is evidently not the way to do that. Being upside down for the majority of your resource gathering time is just not going to end well. Alright, so then here is the Mach 2 of that craft. So as you can see, we spread things out a lot more. We went a lot more forwards and backwards, where we went from 4 primary propellers to 6, and we also have our dedicated pitch ones. And yeah, it just keeps everything a lot more stable. You'll also notice we have ACBs on each individual propeller. And what that does is it actually causes them to not affect the entire ship, and so that we could actually have the dedicated ones, as ACBs do have an area of effect. So, on top of that, this craft also has the first LAM system that I attempted to implement. So, basically, it's going to attempt to shoot any munitions out of the air that come flying at us. I don't know how useful that's going to be, but we'll probably see. It is also RTG powered, so I'm going ahead adding a bit more electricity, and you can see this thing does drift quite a lot. So I'm constantly having to thrust left, right, turn it around, and it slowly drifts through the resource zone while we're gathering. I'm not overly sure why I didn't make it so that the lasers went down below the craft, but for some reason we left them on top so that you always have to be very careful. And so I'm trying to get the AI to actually work with the LAM system here. And let's just say that's not how you set up a LAM system. You actually need things to warn you called ammunition warners. So currently, I'm trying to just get this to connect. It's never going to connect. And it's so weird just watching myself fiddle with this sometimes. Got that. But yeah, so essentially we're now going to attempt to just hardwire it because, hardwiring always works so much better. It definitely doesn't leave a massive exposed thing of wire there. Definitely doesn't cause our weight to shift even further to the left. And we realize we probably don't have enough electricity for a LAM system, so just adding even more RTGs. But yeah, generally at this point we are just circling the resource zone, getting a nice view of the area around us, and trying to keep our eyes open for any enemies that pop up. So, yeah, we've got 4 forward thrusters on this craft, which actually allows us to move decently fast. I think this thing clocks in at like 15, 16 kilometers an hour, or miles per hour, or meters per second. I can't remember. But yeah, so yeah, overall, we're essentially just waiting to see what happens as usual. And of course, adding more RTGs, because you can never have too many RTGs unless you get knocked out of the air. And then we realize that, oh, we have enough electricity, we're just not actually producing the engine power we need to move properly. So, more batteries. And bring ourselves back into the resource zone again. Now, we could technically forego all of these ACBs and actually modify a breadboard to handle things. And by doing that, we would also be able to integrate our roll thrusters, but we just don't end up doing that in this particular run, as I hadn't realized it was a thing yet. And breadboards are actually surprisingly easy to work with and very fun, and you can make some weird things. So I did here end up getting sick and tired of constantly having to steer the craft myself, and I ended up turning the ship's AI on, which I set it to resource gathering mode, so it will just constantly try and get to the resource gathering point, which I thought meant that it would go to the resource gathering point and then just be idle. And instead, it decided it needed to be on the exact center of the resource gathering node. And so it's just constantly steering and auto correcting. And we now have an enemy that has spawned in. And so I'm trying to figure out where it was. But the ship was turning around so much that I lost it for a little bit. But we see him, we've got our eyes on him, and we are going to, just circle around because we want to see how the LAM system works, but we don't know what that is or how it's going to fight us. So we're going to be a little cautious, but not just straight up run away. So, and then I realize it's going really fast. And it is probably going to kill us, and we're off. So we now have a second enemy. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, what are we at? 37 meters per second there. That's actually decently fast. And then the second enemy begins shooting at us with lasers, the thing that we can't deal with a LAM system. Because, of course, it's got to be something that we didn't build a defense against. And you can see bricks just getting ripped off mid-combat. You can see our front propeller took a little bit of damage. We're doing some repairs. We don't have that much resource, of course. And we have a second enemy that spawned in. He's using missiles, so my thoughts are that we can hopefully have him kill the laser enemy, because he does look larger than the laser enemy, I do believe. And yeah, so our plan is have him fight the other guy, and then we'll steal his loot, and then we'll run away. But, yeah, no, that didn't work out. As you can see, the laser enemy does a single strafing run, instantly kills the missile enemy, and then turns on us, and we instantly lose our tail, and there goes another big piece, and we're just taking hit after hit after hit from his incredibly deadly lasers. Although, are they incredibly deadly, or is it the fact that we are a floating platform made of wood being shot at by lasers? It could really go either way. But we're down basically 3, maybe 4 thrusters. We are no longer controlling our pitch, and our jets are causing us to go up. We managed to go over him, and we're losing altitude now. And another big hit, and that is that craft down. We once again have a very quick death. At this point, I wasn't even trying to recover, because I don't know if you saw it, but in the carnage, what got hit was our chair, and we actually have fallen into the ocean at this point. So we are long gone. And so now we're on to our third and final craft of the day. This one includes a little bit of the building time, but not too much of it. So it makes up the meat of this video, and it's the most recently recorded. Essentially, it's a third attempt at a flying platform. This time, I have learned a little bit about the stealth mechanics, so we're taking that into account. And so you'll notice the main body of our platform is made of rubber, which has some benefits for radar avoidance. So we've gone ahead, used that, and then I, for some reason, lose the ability to count here, and I've got to do it a couple times. Just to be sure. And we thus have our secondary propellers, which will help us with roll. So we've got our 4 primaries for lift, 2 for roll, and then I do believe we do 2 for pitch. Yeah, so we've gone ahead and done the settings on those. We throw down a couple more parts, and we check things out to see if it's stable. It is very much not. And then I notice that we're actually not gaining any resources there, because apparently our resource gather, despite looking like it was above the water, was actually below the average level of the waves, which caused it not to work. And so this is just a bit of fiddling with the PIDs and the ACBs and just getting everything balanced so that it actually goes up. Got to check these, because apparently they auto-configured themselves to something I did not want, which caused them not to run. So again, we see the PIDs overriding the ACB commands, which causes our thrust to do weird things. So we then go ahead, we add our pitch controls, which we actually end up running a little bit dry on resources while we're doing. So we put the back one on, we wait a little bit, and then we snap down the front one. And so now we have our nice little stable platform, barely above the ocean, and I decided we could either put engine power into this, or we could start putting a little bit more a little bit of an extension onto the main thrusters. So we just go ahead and we do that. It's a little bit cheaper. It means we don't have to get an engine that will actually keep up with our craft quite yet. And so we now have enough flight to avoid any torpedoes and to get out of the damn waves. And we're just sitting above the water. And you'll notice instead of using a laser resource gatherer, we've actually gone ahead with the oil drill one, which I kind of prefer now, mainly because it just gives us a different visual. We actually get the pipe going all the way through the craft and into the ocean no matter what, which is rather nice. Going ahead, adding a third tier to our thrusters because we were still not managing to keep up in the air. And I actually make an error while I'm building this and I have to go back and fix it. As you can see here, we actually put a main data blade instead of a data blade extension, which caused it not to work for a second. But we fixed it and we're good to go. So we're now happily in the air. We're adjusting our pitch on our roll to actually be stable so that it doesn't buck as much, mainly for your benefit. I don't mind that much if it rolls a little bit, but I'd rather have it be extraordinarily stable just for recording, because I don't want you guys getting seasick. There's no point in that. Especially when I know how to fix it, so. Or at least, sometimes, as I'm currently demonstrating, where we just set it to 1 instead of 0.025. We then notice we're drifting out of the resource zone, throw a thruster down, put some thrust on it. And so we have actually cut from that as we had finished our construction, and we're now all the way into our first combat. So we sat around in the resource zone, and then we noticed a monkey barrel coming around, and we actually ended up installing, I don't know why I didn't show it, I thought I did. We have 3 of the new beta shard cannons installed on top of our craft, right above the resource gatherer on a little turret. And so we're just trying those out. We're taking shots at the monkey barrel. We're actually getting really good hits. As you can see, we hit him. That was 3-4 blocks flying off, but it has a lot of recoil. And so that ends up becoming a huge issue here, as every time we shoot, we are actually causing our back to buck up into the air, and we have our thrusters on the back. And so what ends up happening is we are knocking ourselves out of the sky a little tiny bit with every shot, which, as you can imagine, as an aircraft, is not the greatest plane in the world. And as you can see, we're now in the water. And our main thrusters just can't keep up with the recoil from the shard cannons. So at this point, I have no idea how a monkey barrel fights. Honestly, I'd seen them flying around. I'd never actually gotten close enough to fight one, as usually they get taken out by something else, or they crash into the ocean, or any number of 1,000 things happen to them. But this is my first actual encounter with one, so it actually feels really fun. That was a good shot. I just saw like 8-9 bricks fly off that one. There's another 5 on that, and something else has tagged us. So we see something flying off the monkey barrel, landing in the water. Then we see a massive explosion above us. No idea what that was about, but you can see our turret right there. And we have torpedoes landing on the deck. So these essentially are just blowing massive chunks out of our infrastructure, because we are a floating platform. We're supposed to be above the enemies. They aren't meant to be above us, because if they're above us, that means they can land hits like that. And as you can see, we are dying. We are actually sinking now. Everything's going gray, life is fading from our tiny robot bodies, and we then manage to struggle our way around the ship. Make some adjustments. Try and figure out what's going on, what would be a good fix for this. Figure out what we're fighting. And I decide the best course of action at this point is to pull off our main thrusters on the right side of our ship, which will cause us to start to get ourselves uncapsized. So I take a look and I confirm it is indeed a monkey barrel that we've done some damage to. And we pop out of the water, we get a view of him. And I think for a second about shooting him with the shard cannons, and then I think about the amount of recoil that would cause, which would push us back to being underwater again. So we decide against doing that, as we want to not be upside down. So I realize that we're actually dying at this point. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, we should probably fix that. We don't have an engine. As you could have seen earlier, it's behind the mast. We have a fuel engine right there. And it actually took a lot of hits from those torpedoes. And so instead we end up installing just a quick electrical engine, and we put down another Heartstone, which will start recovering our charge, which will cause us to not be completely dead quite yet. And we see another big chunk coming off the monkey barrel, but we didn't shoot him. So that means whatever is around here right now is dealing with that monkey barrel pretty efficiently. And so now that we are stable, I decide, okay, it's time to take off our other side of our primary thrusters, which will cause us to just float like this because we are a large rubber platform. It should be fairly stable. I'm looking around, trying to figure out what it is that is attacking us and the monkey barrel, and it is that thing. So we get a good look at it. I'm trying to figure out what it is. It looks to be our old nemesis, Tiny Planes. And we take a shot at it. Question is, can we hit it with our guns though? These new shard cannons are actually really accurate and wonderful, and they do great damage, but we just barely go above. I don't know if that was me having a bad aim or it dodging, but we don't manage to land the hit. And we take another shot. Let's see if we can hit it this time. And another dodge. Yes, it's coming around for another run at us, and we fall briefly into the water. Just a little hole in the deck. It's okay. It's just one hole. We see a massive explosion of parts from our right side. I'm assuming that was the monkey barrel exploding in death, because I don't think we have that many parts from us left. Yeah, you just see all those shards just floating around in the water. And we just continue taking pot shots at this thing. These shard cannons are basically sniper rifles, and I see a massive volley of missiles just taking out our main gun right there, along with a bunch of our other stuff. As you can see, we did have a missile system on the bottom of the craft, but it was set up as a anti-missile missile system. And so until right now, it was very much useless. However, oh yeah, and those were frag missiles, I see, okay. I wasn't sure until right now what type they were, but yeah, it does appear to be fragmentation. So, essentially the issue was, since we managed to push ourselves down into the water, we didn't have our anti-missile missile system ready, which caused, once again, our attempt to counter-build the enemy weapon system to fail. Either with the LAM system, because we built the wrong one, or with this one because we happened to nullify our own weapon accidentally. And so we're going ahead, we're putting down an electric engine, a battery, heartstone, and we are getting a weapon to try and take a shot at this thing with. This enemy plane is known as a spiral, by the way. I do believe it was visible earlier, but I didn't point it out. So we're just going to go ahead, grab some simple weapons, and we're debating what we should throw on. Probably should have been the 40mm Mach 2 anti-air there, as that probably would have dealt it, but I was like, okay, well, let's try out these ones, the 30mm. And so we end up installing 7 of those. I'm like, oh no, we don't have any ammo. So I end up, for some reason, putting the ammo out on a stick at the edge of the ship. I don't know why I did this. This was probably one of the worst ideas. You'll also notice we installed the guns on this turret backwards. So we've got to go ahead, pull all the guns off, and after we do that, we got to put them back on the right way. And so we put them all on, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we now have our 7 guns again. And we finally take some more shots at this thing. So we're going to try and aim at its nose to try and lead the shots a little more. Fire 1 volley to see how accurate these things are, and the answer is horrible. They are horribly inaccurate. So this thing, we fire volley after volley at it, and literally nothing. Luckily, these do appear to be radar-seeking missiles, and the fact our ship is made almost entirely of rubber at this point is helping us out quite a bit with their aim being just terrible. So, with that advantage, we keep shooting, just trying to rain down as many bullets as we can to hope that something hits it. But to no avail with that volley. More missiles, they take out the tail, they take out, there goes our ammo crate right there that we put out on a stick. Still not sure why I put 300 resource on a stick. That was terrible. And so, no ammunition. Guns are a little bit jammed. And we're just sitting here realizing, oh no, the ammo's gone. And you'll notice parts of the ship are constantly being repaired. So what little resource we had to work with is being whittled away. More missiles. There goes that turret we just built, along with another half of the ship, just completely gone. We're now just sitting on our little rubber raft. We pull a piece off. It causes a lot of imbalance, and you can see we're once again constantly repairing, which should probably be turned off at this point, as increasing the hull integrity of the ship at this point is just not vital. I put down a little bit of an anti-air cannon. I think it's a 20mm. I was hoping it would fire faster, but unfortunately it just still isn't hitting. We see more missiles. They dive under the ship. Luckily, our rubber hull seems to be keeping us alive for now. And so we're just debating exactly what to do. Throw down another 20mm anti-air to take more shots at the enemy. And we end up dodging more missiles that go under the hull. And we take another hit there, which means a lot of our left side is gone. Stopping the automatic repairs because I'm finally realizing just how much resource it's costing us as we take constant hits. And as you can see, I'm just fighting the auto repairs, which have cost us literally all of our resources. We try and put down all the things we need to just not die, but yeah, we just spent too much time on the auto repairs. So that was the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye.